Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we have finished Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. We read chapters 88, 89, the epilogue, maybe an end note, an Ars Arcanum here and there. Who knows? We'll talk about them a little bit. But we wrapped up the second book of the Stormlight Archive after a 32-week journey, not including the breaks that we took and so on. So it's been a time. And in these chapters, lots of crazy stuff happens. We're going to get into it. I'm not going to, it's like too much randomness from different perspectives to try to hit all at once. But I'm Data, and with me today is
Jamie,
Joe, and Dak.
So yeah, we're all here to wrap up this book. And make sure you stay tuned to the end, because we're going to have a talk at the end of the episode about what we're going to read next. So hold on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin. So yeah, we did 2 chapters and an epilogue and such this week. What did you guys think of the end of Words of Radiance?
I think the end of this book did not disappoint. And if we thought it was slowing down, it didn't. Yeah, I think it was quite well done. And there was still a couple of surprises. You know, some that we called. Yasna, yes, may not have got her dialogue right as she came back, but I was still quite happy when she came back. I did not see Adolin murdering Sadeas in the halls. That was a fun little scary moment in there. And I listened to the chapters, but I read the epilogue, and I was listening in the middle of the night, feeding our baby when Sadeas was murdered, and I was like, but like couldn't say anything to anybody because everyone was asleep. Like, oh my god. So that was a fun moment. And then Renarin, I didn't put him together as the fourth Radiant. So yeah, lots of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going in the next book. Yeah. The story is definitely not over, which we knew that because there's more books, but
right.
It's exciting. I think he's left this one in a really good spot.
Yeah, on the topic of like stuff you guys called and didn't, they're like, honestly, I was kind of sad that you guys were so confident so early that Yasna was alive, because like I said, when I first read through it, I just bought it 100%. I didn't even question. Yeah, okay, she's dead. So you guys really did a good job on that one.
Yeah, I guess we just really loved her so much that we didn't want her to be gone. It was like, we're going to just die on that hill, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing we're all going to agree on. I really want to learn more about where she was and what she's been doing, and you know, how much did she know already versus how much has she learnt in her time gone. So that's pretty cool. She also was obviously not quite across what was going on in our realm. So
right.
Yeah, that's cool. But I do like the way that she came back and with Wit, and that's a fun little pairing. I could watch those two together for a long time. I hope we get more of those, but
right.
I don't know how much Wit's going to take, you know, the foreground in the next book, but we'll see.
Keep in mind this question about what Yasna was doing when she during basically the whole of this book, because it's a topic that I will touch on slightly when we get to the end here of the episode. Okay. I would also like to say though that it was remarkable to me that the one thing I really expected you guys to get that you specifically mentioned not getting was like at the end of the last episode, you guys were like, something weird is going on with Renarin, and we got to find out more about what that weird thing is. But when you're predicting like who's going to end up being a Radiant, not even on the radar was Renarin. So that was interesting to me too.
Yeah, I think once they spelt out a little bit more, it's like, oh, how you reacted when you held the shard blade. It's like now knowing what we know, that for us was so long ago that it just didn't even occur as a thought for me. And then when it was pointed out, you're like, oh, it's actually so obvious now.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
And then, as you said, Sadeas getting murdered by Adolin in like a back alley, essentially, probably not on anybody's bingo card, but totally understandable.
But I can't say I was sad.
No. Who would be? I don't even know if his wife is going to be like, she might be like, we're better off.
She could be really terrifying now, though.
It's true.
Because she was not exactly just along for the ride.
She was a schemer.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I agree, though. It just we called a lot of stuff even early on with Yasna, but then there were things like Renarin that we just kind of didn't expect. So it was a fun ending to the book, because there was, spoiler alert, we did read a portion of this ahead of time before coming to talk on this episode, that I don't know if Data ever decided how he's going to release that, what format he's going to release that first reaction reading in. So we did come in we came in this week knowing that Seth was going to be alive, and so we had that kind of already in our heads. But other than that, yeah, like there was a lot of cool stuff, shocking. I really did expect Yasna to show up with our main protagonists and not with Hoyd/Wit. So that was a little different, and I'm excited now for her to reunite with the rest of the group. I would hope that happens quickly in the next book, and it's not some weird long dragged out thing where it's like, oh, she's on the other side of the world fixing stuff, but she's alive. It'll be interesting to see how Shallan reacts, how her cousins, her brother, her mother reacts, her uncle, to seeing her alive. We kind of didn't get that in this book, so it'd be nice to kind of see how that happens. But we'll get there, I'm sure. Maybe eventually. Who knows? She'll die off page again, or die doing something else, and I'll never see her again. Could be. But yeah, the Seth stuff was very cool. The big crossover moment for this book, super fun. Yasna coming back, super great. Sadeas being killed, kind of like just super quickly. That was unexpected for sure. And then what is that going to do to Adolin, like internally? Like, is he going to have some kind of internal struggle over doing that? Now, not saying Sadeas is a good guy by any means, right? He deserved to die. Maybe not to die. He at least deserved to be in prison. I will say that. He deserved to be locked away where he could do no more harm. So I don't know that he deserved to die, but definitely didn't expect his death to be, if he was to die, to be that way. So was a little shocking, was a little surprising. It's like this person who we've kind of been saying has really redeemed himself, Adolin, in this book. With Sadeas' death, is that going to be a major shifting point in his personality/life? And if so, how is it going to affect him? Definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. It would kind of be a letdown, and I feel like character development wise in the next book, for them to just find out, and Adolin's like, and Dalinar's like, you shouldn't have done that, son, but that's one enemy down. Like, that would be unexpected for them to kind of just gloss over it. So yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what the ramifications of that, of that choice of that event are going to be. But yeah, I really enjoyed the ending of this book. It's got me excited. I was a little disappointed in that we still don't really know what, like, we as readers know that there's a shard at work here that is an evil or at least malevolent presence, right? But our characters don't know. So I was kind of a little disappointed that, like, our characters are kind of like, okay, well, what now? That was kind of a weird, feel like, weird spot to end it in. I feel like we could have, they know the Voidbringers are back, and they know there's a storm, but like there's not really like a conflict, a specific thing that like they can say, okay, we're gonna do this to try to save the world. Like, we don't have that yet. Which again, we just ended the second book of a 5-book series, so we've got plenty of time. But I was just wanting some kind of confirmation of what they're after, right? Because potentially we've got Wit saying the world is ending, and the world is ending at the end of book 2, and we got 3 more fat books left. I'm like, wait, the world ending for 3 books? Because in the original Mistborn era, the world was only ending in like 1 book. So 3 fat books versus 1 smaller book. That's a little different.
It's true. Yeah. You got an interesting point about Adolin and like, what are the ramifications of that going to be? Because, yeah, this is a big deal. I guess it wasn't played as that big a deal when, like, our good buddy Royan got killed by Seth. But Sadeas is a pretty powerful High Prince. And so people are going to be interested in who killed him. And there's going to be people who have a stake in a lot of different ways there. So,
right. Well, and there were plenty of witnesses to Royan's death, right? Like he
That's
got
true.
thrown up in the air and slammed on the ground. So like it is sad, but the case is closed. He was killed by the assassin. No one expects the assassin not to be killing, right? So like,
true.
Yeah, this is a whole different thing where it's like he was killed in a room on this giant tower that was brand new that they had just started exploring. Nobody saw who did it. They didn't take his shard blade, so they didn't want the blade. Like it's a whole much more mysterious circumstance than Royan's death for sure.
Also, I guess as far as they know, Royan's murder has been avenged because Kaladin killed the assassin in white.
Right.
That might come back to bite somebody if somebody sees Seth later. But I'm also glad that you brought up the live read that we did, because I meant to address that at the beginning and I forgot. So here we go. We did, or I did with this crew, I read live the last section of chapter 88, the section which, as we now know, Seth returns to life and Nightblood shows up. So read it live and recorded their reactions. There was an interesting, it ended up being, I think, 17, 18 minutes, somewhere around there. So there was some fun discussion in there. And what I decided to do, after talking with some folks on the Discord and some listeners elsewhere, what I decided to do was that audio went up last week for patrons. And I actually put a little, during the editing of last week's episode, I put a little thing in there. So you guys have all heard this before. The folks on the three on the show have not. But if you're interested, you can check that out. Join our Patreon and check that out. But because it's good stuff that I don't want people to miss, I am going to also release it on our normal channel. I haven't decided if it'll be this week when this episode comes out or next week. I might just tack it on to the end of this episode, or I might release it separately like the week after this episode. I'm not 100% sure yet, but it will be out for everybody. So if you want to hear it now, join the Patreon. If you don't, if you can wait, then that's cool. You will get it. So that is what I decided to do with that.
Yeah, lots went down. I'm kind of glad we had we had the live read and reaction of Seth and Nightblood and Nail, because there was already so much else that we were going to have to cover in this. It's like, man, Nightblood on top of all this would have just been so much to take in. Sheesh, what an ending to the book. So much going on. Sadia's stuff was unexpected. It was kind of just like after all the shit we've been through with the Parshendi and the Voidbringers and, you know, the gods and the clash of things, then we have Sadius pop up and just go, by the way, we're still doing this political drama stuff in the over here. And Adelin's like, no, we're fucking not. Shut up, and stabs him. So, but I guess, you know, like Joe was saying, that'll probably come back to bite them, because you can't just walk away from the politics stuff just because God is hammering on your door with a storm. The Yasna stuff, like, yeah, we fucking called that, and I'm so happy. I was expecting her to show up during the climax. Maybe I was sort of wondering maybe she will make the Oathgate works. Like the Oathgate will have her pop up and she leads everyone through, and then that didn't happen. So I'm like, maybe we won't see her again. I was still confident she was alive, and I'm just like, oh, maybe she won't show up until later. And then what is, I guess, apparently one of the traditions for the Stormlight series is every epilogue is Hoyd just waiting in some random place for someone who everyone thinks is dead to show up.
It has happened twice now. That's, yeah, interesting.
We're 2 for 2.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that it happened twice, but there's only been 2 books, and it's happened in both of them. So
yep,
that was cool. Dalinar and the Stormfather are buddies now. So several weeks ago, something popped up on Instagram. Just someone I know shared something on their story, and like I was looking at it, and I was like, what is this? Just a picture of a page from a book. Oh shit! I saw the names Dalinar and the Stormfather and saw they were having a chat. I immediately skipped away from that, and it's like, do not look at it, do not read what they're saying. But I had to message Data, and it's like, so something just got spoiled for me. This is it. I don't know how you want to approach this. And you were just like, yeah, whatever. Just, you know, we'll just leave it. I didn't tell the other two. I told Jamie that something had been spoiled, but I didn't say what. But yeah, now that this has happened, I guess, maybe these two are going to be talking a lot more now. So that conversation could be from anywhere. But at the time I thought, this could be like a turning plot point where this is the only time it happens. No, apparently they're buddies now. So like they're just going to be having chats on the regular. So, but that's a cool detail. I did like Stormfather's like, not going to be a sword for you. Fuck you.
It does make you wonder, like, what kind of sword, like, what would Stormfather's sword have looked like?
Dalinar just holding this sword the size of a continent.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, yeah, come at me, Parshendi. And I was like, oh, sweet Jesus. Because like shard blades don't weigh anything, right?
No, I think we learned when Kaladin and his guys were trying them out, they do weigh something. It's just less than you would expect a giant metal sword to weigh.
Okay. Yeah. Here comes Dalinar with the planet sword. That would be a sight to see. Yeah, like the Renarin stuff. As the other guys have pointed out, like we sort of just forgot there was like with so much going on, it's sort of hard to remember. Oh yeah, Renarin's got stuff going on. We don't really know what. So, but we learned his Spren buddy's name, I think, somewhere in there, which was cool. Hopefully we just see more of Renarin. Because like he does just feel like a background character. I think Jamie put it the best when she said it all happened so long ago for us reading it. I do think of all the books we've read, Stormlight, because just the size of the books, suffers for the format that in we're reading them in, because it does take so long to get through, which there's not really anything we can do about it, and we're committed to the bit now, which is fine. But yeah, there are times when it's like, oh yeah, that happened months and months and months ago.
Yeah.
But,
I considered when we started Stormlight trying to like squeeze more material into every episode, like do more chapters than we've done for other books, but I feel like that would just make our episodes longer, and I don't know that like we want them that much longer.
Yeah, I think we're doing fine, like as it is. Like are they suffering a bit more than the others? Yeah, a bit, but it's not too bad. I think we're still getting most things, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like on the whole, very satisfying end to the book. I think now that we've finished it, I can safely say I prefer Radiance to Way of Kings as a book.
Sure.
But yeah, like good ending, loved it, and yeah, let's talk later about what we're doing next.
Way of Kings can suffer a lot from just all the world building it has to do, and I've seen so many people on Reddit be like, I'm like 150 pages into the Way of Kings. Am I supposed to not understand anything that's happening? Because I'm having a lot of trouble. And people are like, yeah, they throws you in the deep end and you have to kind of just work your way out and figure stuff out as you go. And Words of Radiance gets to come in and, okay, we've set all that groundwork. Let's see where it takes us.
Yeah.
But yeah, you all, it's interesting because you all called Yasna, and I don't think we had a single dissenter being like, maybe Yasna's not alive. You're all on top of it, so that's like a gold star for the crew on this one.
High five, team.
Digital high five, yeah. But yes, it's gonna be. I'm interested in where we're gonna go next, actually. So I'm eager to get to that part of the discussion when we get to the end of the episode. Everyone, stay tuned for that. But I guess let's just. Sorry, there's so much stuff. There's just so much that happens in these chapters, and I'm like, do we talk about it, or let's just get into it, and we'll just do it, because it is so Sanderlanche. Like you said, there's so much that happens, and then to have Nightblood on top of it, you're just like, it would be too much, and that's like classic Sanderlanche, where we're in the last 2 chapters in an epilogue, and it's just like chock full of stuff.
Yeah.
So the first chapter we read was 88, The Man Who Owned the Winds, and it starts out with a bunch of numbers from the diagram North Wall, Coda, Windowsill region. Appears to be a sequence of dates, but their relevance is as yet unknown. And I can share with you guys from the Wikipedia that the relevance is known. I don't know that it's ever in the book at all, but these are the dates of the final 10 high storms preceding the arrival of the Everstorm, is what it says.
Neat.
So there you go. So they're moving into the tower, into the big tower of Urithiru, which, I mean, why wouldn't they at this point? But it's just so huge and so much exploration to be done. And they're way high up in the mountains, which has kind of multiple effects. For one, it says the temperature gets real cold out there, but they're also like sort of above where the high storms mostly go. Like you can tell that it doesn't hit hard up here.
So apologies if I just missed something, but when they say up in the mountains, looking at the map, that's the Unclaimed Hills is where they are?
Well, one moment, and I will share with you the map that'll be in the next book, which labels exactly where Urithiru is.
Okay, because honestly, that's been bothering me. I'm just like, I can't look at the map and just work out where the fuck they've gone.
Yeah, it's also a map that I happen to have on my wall. Does this one show it? Because yeah, the first 2 books not on the map. After that, it's on the map. There it is. Okay, so this is copy image. No, the Unclaimed Hills. That's way out. No, it's where's our? It is basically like smack dab in the center of the continent. Where is our chat? There it is. So if you look like right in the middle, there's some mountains. Maybe, I guess, a little bit to the left of center, but pretty centered.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Just south of Pure Lake.
So the magic portal took them from the shattered plains way over on the right to the middle.
Neat.
Yeah. And Shalon is exploring around and thinking about all the stuff that's happened, unscheduled high storm and something else coming from the other direction. And then she finds a card stuck to like the wall where like the room that basically she's got to stay in. And there's the symbol of the ghost bloods inside. And beneath it is written Shalon's name, not Vale's, Shalon's.
Uh-oh.
Yep, this is a problem. And she's like, oh, crap, do I run? But run where? And she goes in, and there's Mraize just chilling, looking out over, out the not even a window. It says it's a glassless window that overlooked another section of the inside of the tower. And she thinks to herself, no, I'm no longer a child who hides in a room when the shouting comes. If I run from this guy, he'll see me as someone to be hunted. And so Mraize is like, you led me on a grand hunt, Vale. If your abilities had not been manifest during the course of saving the army, I perhaps would never have located your false identity. And she's like, no, you seem confused. Vale is the fake identity? I'm Shalon. And he's like, yeah, I don't think so. All right. And he's like, so what are you going to do? Are you going to hide the real nature of your powers? I mean, I could guess what they were, but others might not be as knowledgeable as me. They might see only the blade and not ask what else you can do. And she's like, how is that any of your business? He's like, well, you're one of us. We look after our own. And she's like, what? No, but you've seen through like the lie. Like, well, are you saying you don't want to be one of the Ghost Bloods? And she's like, well, you killed Yasna. And he's like, well, yeah. But after she assassinated a number of our members, you didn't think her hands were clean of blood, did you, Vale? Which I guess that's new information. And yet I'm unsurprised, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, during the prologue, she was trying to set up assassinations. So it's not super surprising.
And I mean, what we saw her do in the last book, like she's clearly capable.
Yep, it's true. And Mraize is like, I should have guessed you'd turn out to be Shalon Devar. Your family has a long history of involvement in these events. And she goes, I'm not going to help you. And he goes, curious. You should know that I have your brothers. Your house is no more. Your family's grounds seized by a passing army. I rescued your brothers. Your family, however, owes me a debt. One soulcaster, broken. How convenient that you, by my estimation, are one, little knife. And she summons her shard blade. And she's like, I will kill you before I let you use them as blackmail. And he's, no blackmail. They're going to arrive safe. A gift to you. You wait, see if I'm good to my word. I mention your debt just so it has a chance to find purchase in your mind. And she says, why? And he's like, because you're ignorant. You don't know who you are. You don't know what we're trying to accomplish. You don't know much of anything. Why did your father join us? Why did your brother seek out the Skybreakers? Okay, so that's also news.
That was a bomb to drop.
Yeah.
I mean, means more to us because we read the bit with
Nail,
with Seth and Nail before this, but okay, that's not what I thought was going on at all.
We have been wondering where Halaran got like shards and such, and so maybe that's an explanation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's assuming that Halaran is the one he's talking about, but none of her other brothers have any skills to speak of that we know of.
I was going to say, like, which of the other brothers could it be? Dog killer, drunkie, or gambler?
Yeah, I don't see it being anyone other than Halaran.
Yeah. So yeah, we'd been talking about like who was this guy working with? I think the Ghost Bloods was Amaram's theory. He was like, oh, the Ghost Bloods are trying to kill me, but apparently it was the Skybreakers. Why? And Mraize says, I've done some research. You see, I have answers for you. I'll give you time to consider. But you seem to think that being a Radiant makes you unfit for our numbers. But no. Let Shalon Devar be a Radiant, conformist and noble. Let Vale come to us and let her find the truth. And then he leaves. Which, sure, that's a hell of a carrot to dangle. And then she thinks, like, how did he even get here? Oh, of course. He's probably in the armies when we had that fight. I brought him here, essentially. And she finds Adolin, who has his wrist wrapped. And I love, he had a rugged, I punched a lot of people today quality to him.
Adolin's in a good mood.
Well, yeah. I guess he kind of is. He's like, you're amazing. You saved everything, everyone. Shalon, you're something greater than even a Light Eyes. And she, was that a wisecrack about my girth? He's like, what? No.
Yeah, she had to ruin it.
She tries too hard to be clever. And I think it's a coping strategy. We've seen how when she was a kid, she had to come up with this stuff to like make her brothers laugh, keep her family from being like utter misery all the time. And I think that kind of explains a lot about like how she is.
Yeah.
Let's see. she's like, look, I'm not going to let this be awkward. You're not going to let this be awkward. Like, this is not coming between us. We're going to be us. And then when she's left alone, Pattern's like, it's time. The Ghost Blood Circle, the people need a Radiant. And she says, no, they have one. The Bridge Boy. Not enough. They need you. And so she starts crying and the room starts to change. White carpet, a picture on the wall, furniture, and 2 corpses. And we find out that one of the things that she's been keeping and not wanting to admit, not wanting to think about, is when she was a little kid, she killed her mom. But in her defense, it seems to have been self-defense. Like, it says that Mother tried to kill her. She was calling Shallan one of them. She had a friend there. Father bursts in. Mother's friend has a knife. They struggled. Mother takes the knife and comes for Shallan. And then there's a sword in Shallan's hand. He let everyone believe that he'd killed her, that he'd murdered his wife and her lover in a rage, when I was the one who actually killed them. He lied to protect me. The secret destroyed him. It destroyed our entire family. So that's a hell of a thing for her to have to deal with.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. I was like, yes, okay, there's everyone believing that your dad killed your mum, but then there's you killed your mum and you can't tell anyone about it. And then watching what that did to her father over the years. Like, That's huge.
It's like, to protect her, he became this thing that like destroyed their family, the monster that ruined everything. So it's so heavy. And not only that, but we know now that the blade is Pattern. And so she's like, I hate you. Like, somehow it's your fault. You killed my mom. And Pattern's like, I know. Eventually you will kill me and you will have your revenge. And she says, I don't want revenge. I want my family. And we leave her, arms wrapped around herself, crying as this illusion vanishes. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real bummer.
Yeah. And then we cut to...
So refresh my memory, because we were always thinking that she must have killed her dad, and her dad had a shard, and blah, blah, blah. Do we know what happened to her dad now? Have we read that? I don't remember, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, we did. Like,
she poisoned him and choked him out.
Yeah, she poisoned him and then
strangled him. Right. Thank you. Yep. Very
good.
So
she killed both of her parents.
Yes.
I guess don't mess with Shallan is the message that we're getting here.
She's mad at Amaram because she's like, oh, you killed my brother. Only I'm allowed to kill my family.
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
It's true. I mean, when faced with death several times in the book so far, she has killed the person. So
it's true. She always seems to come out on top when people try to kill her. I guess that's true of all of our characters that are still living, but
except for Seth.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yep. We cut to Amaram, who is sending a message.
Ugh, this guy.
To Restaries, saying Dalinar's army, the reports I'm getting indicate the Voidbringers were spotted and fought. Red Eyes, ancient powers. They've apparently unleashed a new storm upon the world. So it's a success. I do not exult in this success. It has ever been our burden as the Sons of Honor to return the heralds, to return the dominance of the church. We had to put the world into a crisis.
Jesus Christ. So all this time Aaron has had his own secret society going on. How many fucking secret societies are on this planet?
There's a lot, right? I think someone asked Brandon that. Hold on.
Everyone gets.
He's a zealot. So basically, he's a zealot. You know, he's the what you call it of the piece. Who's that guy in Elantris?
Oh, Hrathen?
Yeah, Hrathen. He's the Hrathen of the piece.
Okay, so someone asked Brandon, how many secret societies are there on Roshar? And he says, there are 9 currently.
Oh, so there's going to be a 10th sometime because everything is 10s here.
Oh, man. Maybe there was a 10th and then they're out. They're done.
Oh, like the Herald who got left behind, yeah.
They were absorbed into a different one.
Good. I mean, it could happen. I mean, I think I also remember somebody asking him and him confirming that, like, you remember the story that Teft told about his parents and how they were trying to, like, return radiant powers by putting themselves in danger, and his mom, like, died getting squished by a rock or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I want to say he's confirmed that the Envisagers is what he called that group, is what Teft said that group was called. They're like an offshoot of the Sons of Honor or something, trying to bring the powers back to the world. So, yeah.
I guess it's interesting that, like, they're called the Sons of Honor because that means, like, they're clued into the shard stuff, which I feel like maybe not all the secret societies are, but these guys at least have the name. So
yeah, Could be clued in. Maybe it's just, honor is a concept people would want to use in their secret society. So not necessarily, but
yes.
Yeah.
But I
think it more likely that they're kind of keyed in. Like the people in second era of Mistborn were pretty keyed in, right, to harmony and all that crap.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and Sons of Honor. That's not a stretch from Child of Honor, which is what Stormfather kept calling Kaladin. So it could be at least someone in this group is a Shardbearer who has spoken to God.
Mm. All girl band name Daughters of Odium.
Yeah, okay, I like it. He says, the crisis we now have, a terrible one, the heralds will return. How can they not, with the problems we face? When I next write you, I hope to do so from Urithiru. So that's where he's headed. But first...
everyone seems to be going there now from the war camps.
Yeah. First, we're going to take a detour to Dalinar's Ardents. And then he thinks the Sons of Honor had at long last achieved their goal. Gavilar would be so proud. So I guess Gavilar was involved in this, and we know that he was having visions because we were told they only knew the name of the Everstorm from Gavilar's visions. So maybe he is that person who knew something about honor.
Could be.
And so Amaram has gone to find who he believes is a herald. Talenalot Ilin, Herald of War himself, sitting in that dark room. He cuts his way into the wall to get the guy out. He's like, oh, why do they have to keep you in such darkness? This is not fit for the lowliest of men, let alone one such as yourself. I will have words with Dalinar about the way the insane are. Oh, right, Dalinar hates me. Never mind.
Also, they were evacuating when he showed up. Were they just going to leave him in there?
I kind of assumed that, taking the crazy people was, one of the last things that they would deal with, since that requires a lot of attention. But maybe. I don't know.
Maybe they just forgot about them.
Could be. And he's like, hey, come on, we got to go, great prince. And Telenalot is not moving. He's just sitting there saying his things over and over. And Amaram is thinking about, he was played for one of the 10 fools. Who knew Dalinar had grown so crafty in his old age? Rude. I also love that he notices that Telenalot has dark eyes. He's like, oh, that's some sort of disguise. Clearly, a herald would not have dark eyes. And then as he's trying to convince this guy, come on, we got to go. All of a sudden, Talon's hand snaps up right in front of him. And Amaram looks, and he's holding a little dart with some clear liquid on the tip that he has just snatched out of midair. Which that's pretty badass.
Talon ain't no
Herald of War, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knows what's up, whether he wants to or not. It's reflex. He's like, he hears the whizzing of the arrow. His hand just automatically goes up.
And then he grabs a second one right out of the air, inches from Amaram's face. And Amaram's like, oh, shit, the Ghost Bloods. They're not trying to kill the herald. They're trying to kill me.
I mean, is he shocked by that?
So someone is using a blowgun, that does feel very Mraize. We saw him playing with the blowgun earlier.
Yep.
Well, but the description says it's like this person wearing a mask. So is that, what was her name? Iatil?
Maybe so. Yeah, it says held to lips beneath a half mask that covered the upper face. I feel like Iatil's mask covered her whole face.
Well, maybe she has different masks.
Yeah.
She might have different masks. We were also told that it looked like it's growing into her face. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
Who knows?
Maybe
also, it would be hard to wear a full mask and blow out of a dart gun.
True.
It would be hard to wear a full mask that was stuck to your face forever and do anything like eat or drink. So there's got to be a way that they handle that. You can only eat whatever you can slip through the slot in the mouth of the mask.
Yeah, it's like the man in the Iron Mask.
Mm.
Everything must have straws.
Only fruit roll-ups or other flat food.
I had a friend in high school who ended up with lockjaw, but instead of going to see a doctor, just flattened their sandwiches.
Wow. Okay.
Eventually it got better and stuff, but it's like you really need a doctor.
Right?
Yeah.
You might want to
Maybe
see
they
somebody.
just flatten sandwiches. Maybe that's how they eat with a mask on.
Squished sandwiches. Yeah. Some smash burgers and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Amaram summons his blade and tries to chase the person down, but he's too slow. And then when he goes back, Talon is sitting there just doing his thing again. Or I guess he looks at the dark for a second, and it looks like maybe he's lucid. And then he just drops it and goes back to his mantra. And Amaram gets the herald into the coach. So I guess now Amaram has taken charge of this fellow. Obviously, that can't go wrong. And then we have Seth, the part that we did the live read of. We'll still touch on it some, but if you want more detail, check out the live read. So Seth wakes up, and he's pissed off that he's not dead. And then he meets our friend that we've seen a few times before, hanging around, killing nascent Radiance. And this one he brought back to life. He's like, hey, Seth, I like you. I like the cut of your jib, my man.
You got integrity.
Or something like that. And here,
You got that special killing, those special killing eyes I like.
Seth realizes that this is Nalan or Nin or Nail, the Herald of Justice. So this is 2 heralds in 1 chapter for us. And there's only 10 of these guys around, so that's pretty good.
And this also raises the question, way back in the prelude of book 1, 9 of the heralds fucked off and left town to, bear the brunt himself. So if this guy is back, then that stands to reason all the other 9 who fucked off can come back too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, where did they fuck off to? They may have been around this whole time,
just watching and doing nothing.
One of them's like king of the island turtle things.
Maybe
one of them's one of them hangs out and takes care of all the honor blades in Seth's home country. They're around.
Bang up job that guy's doing.
Yeah. He's like, by take care of, I really just mean I'm in the vicinity of them. I don't really care what happens to them.
I was using it as a coat rack.
So, fun fact for you guys, we have seen at least 3 more heralds.
Whoa.
And I don't mean like some character in the background. I mean people that we've talked to that have been on page, people having a conversation with them. There's been at least 3 others that we've seen.
Whoa.
Son of a bitch.
Wow, we're stupid.
We will get there someday. You guys, I'll have to do callbacks to be like, here's where we saw them previously.
Vasher/Sahel, also a herald somehow. No, I'm just kidding.
Turns out he's just across all the planets more than Hoyd.
He's everywhere. He was the Lord Ruler. You have no idea. That would be unexpected.
Lord Ruler had a pretty severe case of death.
Yeah, we even saw him move on to like whatever comes next. So yeah, he's probably not back.
Yeah.
No.
So Nail wants to recruit Seth for his Order of the Knights Radiant, the Skybreakers, because he says that Seth was able to like keep his word, follow the rules of his people better than he's ever seen anybody ever do. So I want you on my side. I want you to join the team. I'm going to train you. And Seth is like, I don't want to be trained. I want to be dead. And he's like, I mean, okay, if that's what you want, I'll kill you. Just say the word. But Seth realizes what he really wants is payback on those guys who told him he was wrong and made him truthless, when in fact he now realizes he was not wrong. So screw those guys, he says. I want to get him back. And Neil's like, all right, cool, let's do that.
Is that an exact quote? Because I don't remember that. Screw those guys. No. I don't think
yeah, I think it was in there somewhere. And then Seth reveals that his people have the other honor blades. And if I'm going to take them on, I'm going to need more than just, my spunky personality or whatever. I'm going to need some firepower. They're going to have shards and magical powers. And Nail's like, hey, no problem, man. I brought you a shard blade. One that is a perfect match for your task and temperament. And he tosses the weirdest shard blade Seth's ever seen. Why is it in a metal sheath? Why is it black? Why is it bleeding weird black smoke? Well, that's because when he picks it up, a cheerful voice says, hello, would you like to destroy some evil today? So yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you said, I can't remember if you said it last time or not, but this was the first time in all the Cosmere books where like the connection between them all was made very explicit, publishing order-wise, yes?
This was like the first major crossover moment. Yeah, I mean, other than like you guys mentioned Hoyd, and I'm like, Hoyd's kind of like a special because he's everywhere. Like that almost doesn't even. But for a lot of people, yes, this was the first moment where it's like, oh shit, like stuff is crossing over.
Yeah, okay. Wonder why Nail calls it a shard blade. Is that just for Seth's benefit, or does he just genuinely not know what Nightblood is?
I think it's a perspective thing where like shard blades are things that they know what to like. They know what that means on this planet. Like awakened sword or whatever you would call Nightblade, that doesn't mean anything to them. So
well,
right.
No, but like he could just say it's like I've got another blade for you, stronger than even a shard blade.
That's true.
Like doesn't have to put a name to it, but
as I also brought up in the live read, Brandon revealed that at some time in the past, Vasher and Shashara visited this planet and saw shard blades and were like, those are awesome. Let's see if we can do that. And that is the genesis of Nightblood. So he may be kind of more closely related to a shard blade than you would think.
Yeah. I mean, he does eat investiture which in the form it could be very handy on this planet. It's like literally, you swing him and he sucks all their stormlight out of him. Be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And we now even know Shardblades are Spren, and they have personalities and stuff. That's even more similar to Nightblood.
True.
We talked about it. How many breaths is Nightblood made out of?
Oh, hold on. It's said. Let me see.
It was in like the multitudes of like 100,000s or something,
Yeah, it
possibly
was
the millions.
Huge
Yeah.
amount.
Awakening stone or steel costs. No, not steel inquisitors. Why is that even in here? Oh, this interestingly, this says awakened objects see similar to steel inquisitors via iron and steel lines. All right. It takes that many to get to that heightening. Okay, Nightblood took 1,000 breaths to be awakened, is what this Redditor says.
Gotcha.
So not as many as we were thinking. I think you may have been thinking about like the 10th heightening, where like the God King had like 50,000 breaths or something that gave him his super extra special powers, but still a lot of breath.
I thought
Lot of
Nightblood
breath.
had more than that.
I mean, and that's not counting all the breaths that he has since sucked up whenever he's being used. So
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I would guess this would actually be a pretty good place for Vasher to live, because essentially breath is investiture, right? So if he can feed off the stormlight from spheres, all he's got to do is make sure he never runs out of done spheres, and he can live forever.
yeah, if he has found a way to like use stormlight instead of breaths, this would be a great place. Like investitures flying around for free every high storm.
Begs the question of, like, and we talked about it in the live read, but how and why did Vasher lose track of Nightblood?
Mm-hmm.
And like, why is he okay with Nightblood being out there? Because you have to know, like, Nightblood isn't destroyed; it's like out there in use, right?
One would think, yeah, unless he thought that he like dropped him to the bottom of the ocean and it was all good after that or something. You have to think that he knows.
Yeah.
Does he just not care anymore? Has he gotten that old and grumpy that he's just like, whatever?
It just seems like a massive shift, considering that was one of his driving forces throughout Warbreaker, was I cannot let that fall into the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm.
To be like, yep, it's gone. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, because he felt responsible for what Nightblood might do since him and his wife made it. Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening who heard me spoil, this is the moment that I was going to bring up who Vasher or who Zahel really was. So it was just a couple episodes off of when I accidentally revealed it, but I was waiting.
Starting to let your guard down.
Yeah, I didn't want. I feel like it taints your reaction to the reveal a little bit when you know Vasher is here, so you're like looking out like, but where's Nightblood then? So yeah, it was going to be after that I said it, so I messed that up a bit.
That's fine. Well, now that episode's out, what's the reaction to that been like?
Oh, people loved it on the Discord. They're like, this is the funniest I've ever seen on the show. People especially loved Joe's just like dying laughing reaction, where I saw one or two comments that was like, that's such a brother reaction. Like just laughing your ass off when your brother screws up. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was funny because it's never happened in like over 200 episodes.
People enjoyed that reveal a lot.
Brilliant.
So we got that going for us at least. Okay, our last actual chapter is called The Four, and the epigraph here is words all jammed together. That's always fun. There has to be an answer. What is the answer? Stop the Parshendi. One of them. Yes, they are the missing piece. Push for the Alethi to destroy them outright before this one obtains their power. It will form a bridge. So, too late, I guess. I mean, if you'd focused more on pushing the Alethi to finish them off than you did on conquering that other kingdom, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Volcano theory.
Yep.
He talks about the Parshendi, specifically one of them, and he mentions a bridge. He means R'lain. R'lain's going to do something awesome, and it's going to fuck up Tarabanchi's plan. Volcano theory over.
I like it. R'lain is the bridge. Bridge 4. That is from floorboard 17, every second letter starting with the second. So, okay. Had to be coded also, apparently. A lot of for a guy who was trying to write all this stuff down to make sure that his genius wasn't lost. He sure coded a lot of stuff.
That was just to save space, so we could write more down, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe that is. I don't know. It's if you put all the letters there and people have to look at every other letter to get what you're saying, I don't feel like you're saving space. It's still the same number of letters. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We got Dalinar. who is standing in darkness and can't figure out how we got here. He's like, hey, this is my home when I was a child. Back before Gavilar. Hadn't Gavilar died? Like, stuff is fuzzy, and then there's warm light, and it makes him feel real good, and then he smiles, and he wakes up, and he's like, well, that was a weird vision. Okay. And we've jumped a week. A week has passed since they got here. People from the war camps are starting to arrive. The Everstorm hadn't returned yet, but if it moved like a regular high storm, it would strike any day now. And so, yeah, this is it's not good. Today, he's going to see if he can get to the roof of the tower. He's just he's compelled to seek the highest spot for some reason. And then we cut to Adolin, who has taken on the task of helping explore these tons and tons of empty halls and rooms and things. He's got a lantern. He's got some chalk to mark up the wall to show where he's been. And this is a weird place. It's like so many hallways, so many doors. It's like really huge, and there's not much here. And then he hears some voices up ahead. And he's like, oh, is that Sadius? Damn. Fucking Sadius, man. Of course he showed up. Everything would have been so much easier if he just stayed behind. And so Sadius is giving orders to his wife and some of the scribes, and then they all take off and leave him just standing there. And Adolin tries to leave without being noticed, but Sadius hears him, and he's like, oh, Prince Adolin, this place is really remarkable. And Adolin's like, oh, so you acknowledge that my father was right, and his visions are true, and the Voidbringers have returned, and you're an idiot for not listening. And Sadius is like, well, I will say, your dad has more fight left in him than I gave him credit for. It was really an amazing plan, working out a deal with the Parshendi so they could put on a show, and they convinced Aladar. And Adolin's like,
this guy.
Right? Just how a politician could come up with just like this, a giant lie and say it straight faced, not only to your face, but he's like, that's what I'm going to tell everybody too.
Yep.
I wouldn't have believed that a few years ago.
You got to give Sadius points. He's nothing if not consistent.
You're not wrong.
Consistently shit.
Yeah. And Sadius is like, what? Are you going to deny that your dad has a Parshendi among his own guard? Isn't it convenient that all these new Radiants are like one of them is that you're at the head of your father's guard and one of them is your betrothed? Like, is this not suspicious? Also, one of them, it turns out, is his other son, but we don't know that yet. And then he smiles and Adolin can see the truth. Sadius doesn't believe any of that, but that's what he's going to tell everyone when he starts trying to undermine Dalinar again. Why are you like this, Sadius? Because you can't have two generals in a single army, son. Your father and I both want the kingdom. It's him or me, so I'm going to make sure it's me. And Adolin's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And Sadius is like, yeah, it does. Your father's not going to trust me again. I'm going to take all of this from him. The city, the discoveries, all of this. It's going to be mine. And Adolin just snaps. He thinks that's it. And he grabs Sadius by his throat and slams him into the wall. And Sadius is like, can't believe what's happening right now.
I mean, to be fair, none of us could.
Yeah. Yep.
Sadius still thinks everyone's playing the same political game that I'm playing, and meanwhile Adolin's like, I just faced down the monsters from the Nightmare Realm. I don't have time for your shit anymore.
Yeah, right? Like, I fought the assassin in white, last week. You ain't shit.
No more games. I'm just going to kill you.
I have held in my feelings about you for a long time, and now I can't do that anymore. So here you go.
That's true. He's been all about just taking down Sadius from day one.
Yeah, I think the first time we met Adolin, he was thinking about how much he hates Sadius and wants to kill him or something. So, yeah.
There you go, Adolin. One thing off the bucket list.
They have a brief but intense, kind of wrestling match almost. And you got to remember, Adolin's got a broken wrist, or at least severely injured wrist. So, but he's younger and stronger, and he gets a hold of a knife. I don't even remember whose knife it was, honestly. One of them pulls out their side knife. Neither of them summons their shard blades because they're in a tight hallway. The shard blade is not useful. It's 6 feet freaking long.
Adolin can shrink it.
Well, Kaladin can, but maybe that's because his is alive.
Yeah, his is alive.
And we saw Shallan shrink hers earlier, and then we find out that hers is alive too. So everything making sense. Adolin gets on top of Sadius, has the knife in his hand, and is gradually Sadius is holding it back. He's gradually pushing it down. My father thinks I'm a better man than he is. Unfortunately for you, he's wrong. And right into his eye socket, piercing the eye like a ripe berry. That's very nice.
Great image.
Yeah. And then into the brain, and Sadius is dead. His father's shard blade appears beside him. And then Aelin's like, holy shit, I just murdered a high prince. What do I do? He picks up the shard blade, this Oathbringer, very, very well-known and recognizable because of the crazy hook thing it's got on its shard blade, drops it out the window, and then takes off, cuts off his bloody like cuffs and things, and takes off down the hallway, erasing the chalk marks he made. So maybe no one will ever know he was here. So yeah, that was intense. I don't know what I expected. Obviously, not that Adolin is going to murder Sadeas in a hallway somewhere, but like we're moving into like a new level of like it's like a bigger, different sort of threat. And so I don't know what I expected for how Sadeas would fit into that. I did not expect him to just straight up get murdered before the end of the book.
No, I thought he was more competent than Strathventure, so I thought he would hang around for longer. But they both died at the end of the second book, so
It's true.
what do I know?
Now you got me thinking. Like, what are there other characters who major villains who die at the end of the second book? You're gonna have to go back and take a look.
Well, I mean, the only other series that's had more than one book is Era 2, and Mr. Suit killed Kark at the end of the third book, not the second. So
it's true.
Yeah, but the second book, Wax killed his wife or girlfriend or whatever. So
that's true.
She wasn't really a presence in the first book, though. I mean, she was, but only in the prologue, and then just like what that did to Wax. Like she herself was not there and being a villain throughout the first book.
Yeah, I think you're. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what about when there's a Warbreaker 2? Are there any villains that could recur in Warbreaker 2 who end up dead? But I don't know that we ever saw what happened to Bluefingers. He's just gone. Maybe.
I don't remember.
I think he just vanishes, like runs off, and we never see anything more of him. Anyway, we cut to Dalinar, who has made it up to the top of the tower. The trap door is stuck because there's Krem coating it, so he like summons his shard blade and cuts it open. So the high storms aren't like bad up here, but there's still some Krem getting dropped. It's actually a pretty small roof because the tower gets smaller as it goes up. It said it was, it's like a big layer cake kind of. Actually, hold on. I can show you guys a picture of what your Thiru kind of looks like. No, that's an artist rendition, but it's not a good one because it's not the cutoff is not in the right place. I love that this is a Lego one. Okay, well here I think this is actually an image from the next book or something in a sketchbook, but it's a good look at what your Thiru looks like. Except that you have to keep in mind that like the other side from what you're seeing here is cut off like flat at the edge of the mountain or something. So obviously, since it gets bigger or smaller at each level as you go up, the roof is one of the smallest areas. Is the point that I'm getting at.
Checks out.
Yeah. And from up here, he's like, oh, Shallan is right. Like, there's gardens. Each outer ring is dedicated to planting food. Okay. He did not know why the eastern face of the tower was straight and sheer, facing the origin. No balconies on that side. And he looks out and sees the pillars of the Oath Gates, and he recognizes, hey, wait, I've seen one of those in Kholinar. It makes up the dais upon which the palace and the royal temple had been built. Shallan suspected Yasna had tried to open the Oath Gate there, but it says the Oath Gates in the other cities are locked tight. And we did briefly see in that interlude with when we were in Kholinar with the Ardents, we saw them walk through a circular room with like the keyhole in the wall and the different depictions of different cities around the outside. It told us at the time that like the keyhole represents how the Ardents are supposed to be without borders or something like that. But it was a very early look at the inside of the Oath Gate in Kholinar. They're trying to figure out how to unlock these other Oath Gates so they can travel to other cities. There are 10, obviously, always 10. So they can theoretically travel to a lot of different places if they can get them to work. And then the Stormfather, he starts yelling at him. Like, you sent the storm to destroy us, to cover up what Shallan and Kaladin were becoming. You tried to end this before it could begin. Why send me visions and then try to destroy us when we listen to them? And the Stormfather responds, I was required to send you visions once the time arrived. The Almighty demanded it of me. And Dalar's like, oh, okay, so the visions are his, and you're just like the vehicle he chose for choosing who receives them. Yep. Why'd you pick me? It doesn't matter. You were too slow. You failed. The Everstorm is here. The spren of the enemy come to inhabit the ancient ones. It is over. You have lost. The Stormfather says he is the spren, you might say, of the Almighty, not his soul, but the memory men create for him, the personification of the storms and the divine. I'm the shadow. I'm not a god. I'm the shadow of one. All right. We find out a little bit about the Everstorm. It's a new thing. It rounds the world now, and it carries his spren. Any of the old people it touches will take on their new forms. And Dalinar says Voidbringers. And Stormfather says, well, that's one term for it. It will transform the Parshmen. Is there no way to stop it? And Stormfather goes, nope. So, yay. So we defeated the Parshendi. We killed pretty much all of them. What was left ran off, but there's not many left. But now it doesn't matter because the Parshmen, who are slaves all over the world, are going to be transformed by this storm. And instead of like the few thousand Parshendi that there were, you will have hundreds of thousands all over the place. So that's going to be bad. Not only that, they're trying to tell the rest of the world about these storms, this new storm rather, and the Parshmen, and nobody's listening. There's a new emperor in Azir, and they talked to him, who invited Dalinar to visit, but obviously considered his words to be ravings. Hey, do you guys remember the new episode, the new emperor of Azir?
Yeah, Lift's buddy.
Yeah, Gox. We met that kid.
Oh, yep.
I like the note. There had been no succession war in Azir after the assassin in white. Those required too much paperwork. The only other monarch he can get to listen is Taravangian of Kharbranth, and now Yaakoved. Heralds bless that man. Hopefully he could bring some peace to that tortured land.
Yes, nothing is wrong with Taravangian at all. He's such a great guy. I like him a lot.
So I love that this is the one guy that Dalinar's like, maybe I can get him on my side. Oh, man.
Gonna be an awkward dinner when Seth drops in. It's like, oh, look, it's my former boss and the guy he told me to kill. Bye now.
Also, they've heard about rioting in Kholinar. That's not good. No straight answer coming out of there. And some sort of plague in the Pure Lake? What a mess. So the plague in the Pure Lake is funny because it gets mentioned a couple of times after this, but you never find out much about it. It turns out that those world hoppers we saw in the Pure Lake before, they brought like the common cold to Roshar, and that is what is striking in the Pure Lake. They've never seen this before, so it's new. Apparently, people in Roshar have pretty good immune systems, and they don't get like sick like that all that often, and so this is like very unusual for them. This like having a cold or a flu is like, they're like, what the hell is happening? And Dalinar says, I've been commanded to refound the Knights Radiant. I need to join their number if I am to lead them. And he says the first oath, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. And the Stormfather's like, I'm a sliver of the Almighty himself. I will not let myself be bound in such a way as to kill me. And Dalinar's like, hey, I need you. The Bridgeman talked about oaths. Each of the orders has different ones. Fortunately, I know the words that I need to say. I will unite instead of divide. I will bring men together. And the Stormfather's like, fine, these words are accepted, but I'm not going to be a sword for you. I will not come as you call, and you will have to divest yourself of that monstrosity you carry. You will be a radiant with no shards. And he summons his sword again, and now he can hear the screaming, and he breaks the connection and drops it. And then he's like, hey, what was that vision that I had this morning? It was weird. And the Stormfather's like, yeah, I didn't send a vision. It must have been just a dream. And Dalinar's like, it really felt like a vision. Go, bondsmith, lead your dying people to failure. Odium destroyed the Almighty himself. You are nothing to him. So,
I mean, I feel like of all the Spren, including the Stormfather, I don't know that I really want the Stormfather on my side.
Right? He's kind of a jerk.
Kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
He's like, it was a dream. Don't think about it. Shut up. Leave me alone.
Fine, you bonded me to you. Now I can watch you fuck this all up and get killed by the devil.
Yeah, there are definitely we've met nicer Spren for sure.
Like, this is a really fun recurring theme that happens across all of Brandon's novels that we've seen so far. Just like you get the two characters who are paired up. Like one is like grumpy as shit, and the other is like sort of, if not perky and upbeat, then at least more upbeat than the other. We've seen it with Vasher and Nightblood, and I guess now with Seth and Nightblood. We saw it with Vin and Tensoon. Now we got Dalinar and the Stormfather, and like there's always like this one person and their little buddy who is like the complete opposite of their personality.
Dalinar's not all that upbeat, I don't feel like.
No, but he's not just like you're gonna fuck it up and everyone's gonna die. Good luck with that.
It's true. Yeah, he's definitely not like that.
He has hope. He has belief that they can win.
Which is his next line, where he's like, if the Almighty can die, then the Odium can die too, and I'll find a way to do it. So yeah, if that's not hope, I don't know what is. So they do at least know that what their enemy is. Like, they're facing an enemy called Odium, who is like a god. That's not much information to be going on with, but the visions mentioned a challenge, a champion. Do you know anything about this? And Stormfather does not deign to answer that.
I'm not hearing a no.
And so eventually Dalinar just goes back down. I don't know if he just left that shard blade, the super valuable thing up there, but whatever.
That's just the nature of this. The Colin boys just leaving shard blades all over the place.
That's true, actually. And so
now going to start like treasure hunts for people to go find and bond with shard blades.
Apparently it would be worthwhile, yeah. He goes down to this room with 10 pillars and another in the center, and Kaladin is waiting there looking at the pillars. He's like, so what's up? And Shallan is also here. And everyone's like, it's been a week. We've gotten some rest. And while this is all crazy, we're feeling a little bit better. And Dalinar pulls out a sphere and like sucks in the stormlight. And Kaladin's like, that is so not fair. Do you know how long it took me to figure out how to do that? And Dalinar says, the Stormfather called me Bondsmith. And Shallan, who has now read Words of Radiance, which mentions the different orders of knights, it's like, yeah, that was one of the orders. That makes 3 of us: Windrunner, Bondsmith, Lightweaver. And then a voice from the shadows goes, 4. And Renarin steps out of the shadows.
Whoa, super emo.
Although I love he steps out of the shadows, looks at the other 3, and like shrinks back. So what might be intimidating is kind of just sad. He's like, oh, I should have stayed back there. Sorry.
He walks out of the shadows. He's like, 4. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm nervous.
I didn't mean to bother anyone.
Can I come too?
And Dalinar's like, what? No spectacles. You stopped wearing them. Stormlight healed your eyes. And that's why you couldn't use your shard blade. Like in the arena, you hear the screams.
Yeah, I was confused about that. I thought it was patterned, but that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, right? And he's like, why didn't you say anything to anybody, dude? And Renarn's like, I mean, I thought I was like going nuts. But Gliss, he says, Truth Watcher. And Kaladin's like, Truth Watcher? What the? I walk the winds. She weaves light. Dalinar forges bonds. What do you do? He goes, I see. All right.
That does not explain anything.
No, not helpful.
Renarin, as your commanding officer.
I can see the future. Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, man. But we got 4 orders, but there were 10 in all. So there must be more out there somewhere. And Dalinar's like, it's actually worse than we thought. The Stormfather says that the storm is going to change the Parshmen, and it will come back and turn them into Voidbringers. And Kaladin's like, oh, shit, I got to get home. Like, I have to warn my family. My parents are there. And the City Lord has Parshmen. I'm going. And Shallan's like, what, are you going to fly the entire way? He goes, well, fall, but yeah.
It's called using gravity efficiently, but yes.
Well, how much light will that take, son?
Falling with style.
It is falling with style, thank you. Yep. Zing. Kaladin goes, he says, how much light will that take? And Kaladin's like, I don't know, a lot, probably. So Dalinar, they don't have a lot of stormlight, and they've been needing it to use the Oath Gates, but Dalinar's like, I'll get you what I can, man. And maybe after you do that, you can stop by the capital and see what the hell is happening there. And Shallan's like, I mean, Kaladin can only save a few people, if that many. There's 4 of us against a storm of destruction. And he goes, it is what it is. Very, very zen of you, Dalinar. And she's like, so many will die. And he goes, and we'll save the ones we can. Life before death, Radiant. It's the task to which we are now sworn. And she says, life before death, Radiant. And that is the end of the chapters. We still have our epilogue, which, as Dak pointed out, and I went to confirm that Oathbringer might be something similar. So it is a pattern.
Yeah.
Wit is sitting somewhere and says, a blind man awaited the era of endings, contemplating the beauty of nature. And he's given this whole thing, and it turns out that his audience is an ugly lizard crab thing, which clicks its claw at him with a hesitant sound. And then Wit's like, ugh, man. Night is normally a good time for dramatic arrivals and meaningful philosophy, but there's no one here for me to philosophize at or visit dramatically or otherwise.
Really killing my buzz here.
So it's like when he was in Kholinar at the end of the last book, he could sit there and like talk at those guards, and there's like, I don't know what to do. He's a Light Eyes. We can't like Make him shut up. But now there's nothing but like crabs to talk to. And he's thinking about various things, music, and he's making music with like these crab insects or whatever. And he thinks maybe they have a rudimentary intelligence. Who knows? Those horses, the Reichadium, those had surprised him. He was glad there were still some things that could do that. And so he goes back to his audience of songlings and lizard crab things. Art is fundamentally unfair. We pretend that art is eternal, that there's some kind of persistence to it. I'm not going too quickly for you, am I? Creek. Good. If art's so eternal, why does it depend so damn much on the audience? And then he kind of half tells this story. He's like, have you heard about this story? It's not that great. Utterly disposable. Standard beginning. Farmer visits the big city, blah, blah, blah. Uses one of the finest paintings in the land to wipe himself in the privy. And then all the light eyes see the empty frame and comment on how beautiful the artwork is, blah, blah, blah. Expectation is the true soul of art. If you can give a man more than he expects, he will laud you. If you create an air of anticipation and feed it properly, you will succeed. But if you gain a reputation for being too good, too skilled, the better art will be in their heads. And if you give them 1 ounce less than they imagined, you have failed. So, yeah, interesting point. I mean, seems valid enough to me.
Yep, checks out.
Give me an audience who've come to be entertained but expect nothing special. To them, I will be a god. This is the best truth I know. I could use a little music, he says, to the silence. For dramatic effect, you see. Someone is coming, and I want to be prepared to welcome them. And, of course, the songling starts this music again. He's like, oh, good, thank you. And then the air in front of him blurs. A streak of light spun around the ring, forming a wall 5 or 6 feet high, which faded. And standing in the center is Yasna Kolin, clothing ragged, leather bandolier, and a backpack. And he just grins at her, and she reached out her hand, and summons a shard blade pointed at his neck. And she says, how did you find me? He's like, you've been making quite a disturbance on the other side. It's been a long time since the Spren had to deal with someone alive, particularly someone so demanding as yourself. Tell me what you know, wit. Sorry, go ahead.
He just busts out that song from Princess the Frog. I've got friends on the other side.
I mean, yeah, kind of. Tell me what you know, wit. I once spent the better part of a year inside of a large stomach being digested. That is a thing I know. That sounds terribly unpleasant, by the way.
Where's that short story, Brandon?
I just also, is it really the thing to say when someone's pointing a shard blade at you? Like, she's not happy, clearly.
I mean, the next thing he says is, I'd be surprised if that little knife of yours poses me any real threat. You can keep waving about it if you want. Perhaps it makes you feel more important. So, we've never seen someone try to kill Hoyd, so maybe he's in some way invincible.
Well, I mean,
we saw Kelsier try to beat him up. Yeah, he got his ass kicked, but And she's like, I don't have time for you. A storm is coming, a terrible storm. Yeah, that's already here. Damn. Okay, we got to find Eurythea. Yep, already found. The Knights, refounded, in part by your apprentice, who I might add is exactly 77% more agreeable than you. I took a poll. I love this exchange. You're lying. Okay, so it was an informal poll, but the ugly lizard crab thing gave you really poor marks.
Man, who's this lizard crab thing, and why is he so invested in Shallan's manners?
Right? And she goes, you're lying about the other things. And he's like, I don't tell those kind of lies, Yasna. That's what you find so annoying about me. She's like, well, it's part of what I find so annoying about you. And then they start walking, and she starts walking, and he's going to go with her. He's like, you realize we're at least a week from civilization. Did you need to else call this far out in the middle of nowhere? I was somewhat pressed at the time of my escape. I'm lucky to be here at all. And he's like, lucky? I wouldn't say that. The desolation has come. You might have been better off on the other side. She says, don't be sorry until we see how much I can salvage. The parchment have transformed. And he's like, yes and no. The storm should hit Shinovar tonight and work its way across. I believe it will bring the transformation. And she's like, it's all happening differently from before. All the information I have may be useless now. If the supposed god of men is a fabrication, so we can't look to the heavens and we can't look to the past. So where can we look? And he goes, you're so convinced that there is no God. And she goes, well, the Almighty. No, I don't mean the Almighty. Tanavast was a fine enough fellow, bought me drinks once, but he was not God. I think you've been looking for God in all the wrong places. And she says, so where should I look? You'll find God in the same place you're going to find salvation from this mess, inside the hearts of men. And she goes, you know what? I believe I can actually agree with you on that, but probably for different reasons than you imply. And we finish the book with the end note is from Naz, a Kedek written on light day in Navani Kolin's personal journal, describing the events leading up to the high storm. So how Naz got her personal journal, who knows? And there's a little bit of information in the Ars Arcanum, nothing terribly new or interesting. There's a little bit about the different surges, the 10 different surges. Adhesion, the surge of pressure and vacuum, which I hadn't thought of adhesion that way. When you see Kaladin like sticking stuff to other stuff, that it's about pressure and vacuum. Gravitation, the surge of gravity. Division, abrasion, the surge of friction. Progression, growth and healing. Illumination, light, sound, and various wave forms, which that makes it sound like you could do a lot more with the surge of illumination than Shalon is doing. If you can manipulate like radio frequencies, microwaves, like there's all sorts of waveforms.
Yeah, but they don't use microwaves or radio waves.
That's a fair point.
Not yet.
Transformation is the surge of soul casting. Transportation is the surge of motion and realmatic transition. Cohesion, the surge of strong axial interconnection. And tension is the surge of soft axial interconnection. So that's really helpful, I'm sure.
No idea what that means.
Nope. We know 5 groups of fabrials that have been discovered so far. Altering fabrials that can enhance something, like create heat or pain or calm the wind, it says. Diminishers that do the opposite of augmenters. Pairing fabrials that are paired to each other like a span reed. Or reversers, where instead of being paired to do the same thing, they do opposite things, where you raise one and lower the other or whatever. Warning fabrials, we've seen one of those in action where it can detect when people are coming close. Some stuff about windrunners and lashings, we kind of knew all that already. Light weaving. The interesting thing about light weaving is the last paragraph. In many ways, this is the most similar ability to the original Yolish variant, which excites me. I wish to delve more into this ability with the hope to gain a full understanding of how it relates to cognitive and spiritual attributes. So it also mentions in the paragraph before that light weaving is similar to a variation present on Cell, which we saw. I almost said Renarin. Raoden created like a disguise for himself, which is very similar to what Shalon does. We mentioned that before. So what light weaving that she does is similar to that on Cell, but it's also similar to the original Yolish variant. So on the planet Yolan, they have a magic called light weaving. Not the exact same light weaving that they have on Roshar, but similar. So fun little fact there. And that's the end of our book, y'all. So let's first do the predigging. We'll go into predicaments. Where are we going with the story of Roshar after this ending? What do you guys think is going to happen next?
Oh, well, I mean, Kaladin's gone off to find his family, so maybe we've sort of spent the first book, I guess, apart, coming together. We spent the second book somewhat mostly together. So, Kaladin sort of splits off that way. You've got Yasna, which I'm hoping will become a more primary character again in the next book. And so, I mean, I don't think it's going to take a long time for her to find people, but we don't know where she is exactly. So her story could be separate for a little while. I would expect that, we've got 4 people that we know have already become the Radiants, but we know we're expecting more people to have radiant powers. Do we need to see the journey of them sort of more bonding with their spren and then speaking the words, and then we've got more knights? It's like, I'm assuming that just because we have 4 people who have bonded, now they know how to do it. There's going to be more people that can do it. Like, they're not going to be, the 4 top knights. They're just like the 4 first knights, I would think.
Okay.
If that makes sense. That's kind of where my brain is heading with that. Like, they're special because they're the first. Where the stories, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely going outside the Shattered Plains. The thing with the Parshendi probably not completely over, and it sounds like we're expecting this storm pretty quickly, so I would expect a transformation fairly early, and then that becomes a big part of our problem. Probably trying to open more oath gates will happen, whether that happens in this book or not, but that would be a mighty fine way to move around once you have high storms back. But it really depends what's going to happen with this Everstorm and how quickly that's going to wreak havoc. I don't think we're going to spend 3 books on this storm. They're going to have to find a resolution with the Stormfather, I guess, because he's going, you can't stop it. Like, tough luck. Sure, I'll bond to you. But they're going to have to find a way around it. I'm looking forward to, moving on from the political thriller to the whodunit thriller of Sadeas's death.
Yeah.
And I think it was Joe was talking, what that's going to do to Adolin. He's obviously got no intention of coming clean about it at this point in time because he's covered it up and rejoined the group. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how that unfolds and what they can determine out of that. Whether they come to it quickly. I don't think they're going to determine quickly that Adolin did it. I don't know that it will form a huge part of the story, but I want to see how that unfolds in the background. I do think we're going to have to watch out for, is it Iolai? Is that her name?
Yeah, I think that
is his wife. Yeah. I can't imagine she's going to take it particularly well, and she's pretty savage. So I think she could definitely get into a position of being a villain of the book. Yeah, so we'll see how that happens. In terms of predictions, that's pretty much all I've got at the moment. I did have a question about what we read in the Ars Arcanum. So they go through the 10 surges, and as an order of a radiant, like you have 2 surges.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep.
So from what we read, Kaladin appears to be the first 2. So it's the adhesion and
gravitation.
The gravitational stuff. How can he heal? Or is that just something they can all heal themselves? Are they referring to healing as in healing another person as a surge, or healing themselves?
Yeah, I think they can all heal themselves. Like even Seth could heal himself to some degree. Not as much as with Stormlight. Not as much as Kaladin, because Kaladin could heal when a blade cut him, a shard blade, and Seth couldn't do that. But they all get some level of healing just from having Stormlight.
Cool, because I was like, that would be 3, and that doesn't make sense to me.
It's also
Kaladin is special and has all of them.
It actually is also a little bit of a hint that we got in the last section about Dalinar being one of the 4, because when he gets hurt, he gets stabbed or something, and the doctor's like, "How many times have you been stabbed in the shoulder?" And he's like, "I don't know, a bunch." How is this still working?
Yeah.
He's like, I just do it.
Yeah.
A little hint there. But you called out a couple of really good possibilities for where the story is going. Like, how is this organization of Knights Radiant going to work? We have 4 now, and they're, kind of buddies. So it works there. But as you add more, how is it organized? Do all of them even want to join this particular group here? So there's interesting possibilities there.
Yeah. And I mean, Dalinar is, a natural leader in this. And I feel like the early adapters to the powers, they're naturally going to form some sort of leadership because they're going to have more knowledge about how it works and what they had to do to get there. Obviously they have some understanding of it because they've figured it out and all that sort of stuff. So I think in terms of the leadership, Dalinar, and he's been tasked to unite them all. There's a natural leadership there, but as you get more, is the heralds had their radiance. So, do the heralds come back and assume that leadership, or who leads each order?
We know that at least one group is still out there somewhere because Nail told us that he's running the Skybreakers and he recruited Seth to join. So that's one group that is like, does Nail go and follow Dalinar or help him or something?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
And then you also brought up on the other side of the coin, we're apparently going to see this transformation happen to all the Parchment around the world. If that's the bad guy, how does that organization work? Because it's all of a sudden, all over the place, suddenly there's these bad guys. Do they organize? Do they have generals or something that are going to lead them? Or, what happens? It's an interesting possibility. Or question, I should say. So much to not be sure of at this point.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, right. But also, I want to touch back on something I told you at the beginning that I would touch back on is what Yasna was doing off screen.
Yes.
So you guys may remember, we talked about once before on the show, when I went to Dragonsteel Nexus this year, the game that they had these package of cards called Story Deck. And there were 3 stories that you could collect all the little pieces of and have the full stories. One of them was called The Chasm Friends Get a Pet, which is kind of a silly from the Chasm Fiend's perspective, almost like a kid's story. Kind of fun. One of them is about Lopen and what is happening. We see Lopen guarding the king, guarding Elokar, and his mom is helping, right? In the last section we read. It is a story about what happens after that, like with Lopin and Elokar and Lopin's mom and things like that. So that's an interesting story. The third one is called Elsecaller, and it is the story of what Yasna is doing throughout this book while all this other stuff is happening. So I figure at some point we will need to read those. The thing is, there is no publicly available text of those stories yet. I think Brandon is intentionally holding back a little bit so that people have a reason. The story deck cards are now on sale on his website, so people still have a reason to like have fun and trade and collect these cards. So I'm not sure how I would get you guys the stories short of pulling out. I have all of the text. I got all of the story cards, the main ones at least. So I could take pictures of them and send them to you guys. I don't know how readable that would be. So I'm going to figure out how to get you those. And at some point, those are stories that we will read and discuss on the show. I'm not sure how soon or late. I mean, if Brandon's holding the full story back, I don't know that it's right for us to go and be like, here's everything that happens in those for the moment, not until they're released. I don't know. I'm not sure is the answer there. So it is something that we will learn at some point. It's not so central to the plot that it's going to be in one of the other books. It's a side story that ended up on these trading cards.
Okay. For now, we will continue to wonder.
Yeah. And so, you know, if listeners, if you have opinions on if you've got those cards, you went to the convention, you have opinions on when we should read them, feel free to send in, because I'm thinking about it at this point. Sorry about that. Just a random side note. You guys can go back to predicting.
Man, what's gonna happen? We didn't get our big bad like focus reveal of besides Voidbringers, right? We didn't get like a huge reveal of what our next main like antagonists are going to be. Besides, this Everstorm's going to turn these Parshmen into Voidbringers, and they're going to bring about the end of the world, right? I think I've talked a little bit about what maybe some of my expectations are, right? We're going to have to deal with Adolin killing Sidaeus in some way. I feel like that's going to have some kind of deep effect on him. It's not going to be something that can just be kind of glossed over. It's going to be more than just like, yeah, that's a thing that happened. I killed that guy. So we're going to have to deal with that. Kaladin making it home. Who's going to be around? Are both his parents still around? If he makes it all the way home, what is that homecoming going to be like? They obviously know that at least one of their sons is gone, I assume.
Yeah, you think.
Have they been thinking about Kaladin? Have they been wondering about him? What is that going to be like? Is it going to be happy, bittersweet, whatever?
Yeah, we've never seen anything that was like Kaladin sent a letter home to his parents to let them know he was alive.
Yeah. So we don't know. And then Dalinar's got a lot of stuff to do, and he's a little misguided on who his friends are, aka Taravangian. So like, how is all that going to play out? Is Taravangian going to take a more active role in this next book? Is he going to be like more of like a big bad main character than he was in this book? He was just kind of on the sidelines. Is he going to have to take a more active role, or is it just going to be more of him like masterminding? Is Nail going to be like a more active presence? We got him a few times throughout the books, and then kind of in the at the end here, he brings back Seth, but like, is he going to be a more active player? And then, are Yasna and Wit like best friends, BFFs forever now? Like they're going to hang out and we're going to have the Wit Yasna adventure. That'd be kind of interesting. Or is she going to get back like to the rest of the group? I think that would be, kind of maybe more what we would expect, right? We would want her to let her family know, like, yeah, I'm alive, by the way, like, so, and then what role does she end up playing in that group, that dynamic, right? That's a fifth Radiant potentially that we've got, that we know where they are, right? And there's other Radiants that we've met throughout the book, Lift and so on. Like, are they going to take a more active part in the main story, or are they just going to, is it just us as readers knowing, yeah, those people are in the background doing their thing, fighting monsters or whatever?
Just to expand on that, Yasna, as far as we know, started experiencing these Radiant things like 6 years ago, the night her father died. So she may be the most experienced with her radiant powers at this point, despite the fact
Right.
that she's kept it a secret. So does that like mix things up in terms of who's in charge of this group or something, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the shoemaker, he seemed like he'd had his guy a long time too, but he's dead now. So
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, that's another thing. Is like, how long have these Spren been out and about doing their Spren thing? What's Amaram's role going to be? I assume he's coming back. Moash, what's his thing going to be? We don't like him, but like he's I doubt we've seen the last of Moash. Like, that's not the end of his story is not like, I feel like a fool. The end.
He's heading off to join the diagram or something. So
yeah, he's gonna be hanging out with Teravangian, listening to people's death rattles and stuff. But yeah, there's just a lot of our, even though a lot of our characters kind of ended up together at the same time, a lot of other characters kind of spread apart. So we're kind of figuring out like how each of these puzzle pieces are going to kind of fit in. And we obviously don't know the answer completely. So we'll just kind of hang on for the ride, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I would want to see some kind of united front of our characters finding out like, okay, this is the bad. Let's prepare for this. It would be shocking to me if this became more Game of Thrones in the sense of like all of these different perspectives all over the planet from different people, and then they're each in like their own conflicts, that like battles and events and things like that. That would be surprising. I don't feel like that's normally how Brandon would write these stories, would have all these big separate conflicts, and then every once in a while our characters cross paths. I don't feel like that's how these stories have gone in the past. So I'd be surprised if that's kind of the way he wrote this. Even though I feel like, Game of Thrones made that kind of style of writing more popular, where it's like you've got all these characters, you're reading from their perspective, but they're all doing their own thing. They're all part of the larger story, but maybe not connected together as specifically in the story beats, right? So I don't feel like that's what we're headed for. I feel like we're going to have a consolidation of like good guy power in one area, or at least all towards one goal, as opposed to each person kind of doing their own thing. Definitely interested to know, if more heralds will be outright revealed to us instead of saying we've already met, other heralds and talked to them. Definitely interested to know who those are. Maybe we'll get more as the story goes along. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of concrete things here because we're coming to the end of a story, and we're kind of in a period of like, even the characters on page are like, okay, well, what now? So that's kind of, I feel like, where we've landed. It's like in that what do we do now portion of like unknowing, unaware. Very similar actually to at least in that aspect, to the end of Well of Ascension. They're like, oh, what do we do now?
What now? Yeah. Like shit just kicked. What now? Yeah.
Right. At least in that they had a very specific focus of like Ruin. And of course they didn't know what Ruin was doing and what his machinations were going to be. They didn't know like, oh man, he's going to take over all of the Inquisitors. But like they at least knew like, oh, we released this bad guy out of the world. Now it's just like, we released this storm onto the world. Maybe it's going to turn people into these monsters. We don't know when it's going to come or when it's going to happen, but it's a thing that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's very what now?
It's fun.
You got me thinking about it. Have we seen any stories where it was like a lot of people are off doing their own things? I mean, I guess the first book was kind of like that of these books.
Yeah.
The closest beyond that I could think of. I mean, obviously Elantris, we had 3 different perspectives and they were kind of doing different things, but they're all in the same city and all of the things they're doing are kind of related. So I don't think of that as quite the same thing. I think Hero of Ages was kind of like that. Like Elend is doing one thing, Tensoon is doing one thing, Spook is doing one thing, Vin is doing her thing, and then they all kind of come together, crashing it towards the end.
Yeah, even I think Sazed was like the most separated in that book, it felt like.
Well, Sazed was with Spook for a lot of the time. He goes off with Tensoon like towards the end to meet the people, but he definitely had his own thing going on. Even being with Spook, he had his own like agenda that he was mostly focused on. going through his religions and stuff. So it's happened a little bit, but I agree that it's not on the Game of Thrones level of that sort of thing. But speaking of things that it's hard to predict, I was going to take this opportunity to ask you guys. The next book is called Oathbringer, and we know each one focuses on flashbacks of the history of a particular person. So have we talked about this? Do we know or have guesses about who Oathbringer is going to focus on?
I mean, Oathbringer was Dalinar's sword, so maybe Dalinar. I don't know.
Fair guess, yeah.
That was my guess too.
Okay. Jamie, any dissenting opinion?
Yeah. I mean, that probably would have been my guess, but he's just abandoned the sword.
Well, that wasn't Oathbringer
Well,
that he
no,
abandoned because Sadeas had that.
No, you're right.
That got abandoned by Adolin, who chucked it out a window.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Dalinar. I think, let's just throw someone random at it. Who would be cool? I don't know, maybe Navani will pick it up or something.
Oh, that could be interesting. I can see. I want to learn more about Navani's history. Sure. Okay, that's good. I like that. Even if that's not correct, I want that to be correct now.
It's probably Dalinar, but
all right. Sorry, Dak. So that just occurred to me. And I wanted to hit it before we moved on.
All good. Well, my first prediction was in the same sort of ballpark, not like who the history would be at, but the prologue chapter, because I think you've said before the prologue of each of these books is someone else that happened the night that Dalinar, not Dalinar, the night that Gavilar died.
Yeah, we know for the first 5 books at least, it's a different perspective for each of that same night for each book.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a swing and say that for Oathbringer, the prologue will be Eshonai's perspective.
Oh, okay.
But I think she was there. She wasn't one of the ones who surrendered. She ran. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think she mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to see like Eshonai's perspective, the Parshendi perspective of that night.
Yeah.
But yeah. Speaking of Eshonai, like I've said before, I don't think she's dead. I think we're going to see her again, given that she is in storm form. Something Dalinar said with the Stormfather is like, oh, there's going to be like a contest or something involving champions. I'm like, well, Eshonai seems like the good candidate for the other side as a champion.
Oh.
Not a willing one, obviously, but she does, like, her compliance isn't really a factor at this stage. So, yeah, I think Eshonai will have that part to play coming up because she's the last shard bearer among the Parshendi, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. As for other predictions, I agree with Jamie. I think ELI is going to be like much more of a presence going forward now that Sadeas is gone. She's got a personal stake in it. So I think she will be a big Alethi villain like coming up, but no one will know that for the longest time because she's too good at sticking to the shadows.
I think she'll be more subtle than her husband was.
I think so, but I think she will have an in because Dalinar has sort of hinted that, I'll open up communications with Taravangian, and we know that Taravangian wants Dalinar out of the way, so maybe ELI will forge something with Taravangian. The diagram will tell him to approach her, and she will just gladly go, yeah, I'm gonna fuck that guy up for you. So I feel like there'll be misdirects all the time because she is so good at hiding in the shadows, but well, so is Taravangian for that matter, really.
True.
But yeah, I think ultimately she's going to be one of the key villains coming up on the Alethi side, at least. She's terrifying. The other prediction I have is regarding Elhokar. We all know that Elhokar has been seeing cryptics in the mirror, so I think it's pretty clear that he will become a Radiant as well. And I think this will be a good positive step for Elhokar because like he won't be in charge of the Radiants, and I think he will acknowledge that like, okay, this is a separate thing from him being king of country.
Okay.
Like he will still have a position of authority, but he will not be in charge of the Radiants. And I think that'll be really good for him because he's begging people to train him and teach him stuff. So now that will happen. And probably from Shallan because she also has a cryptic, which will probably make things super awkward since she and Patton aren't happy with each other at the moment. Or at least she's not happy with Patton now that she remembers what she used Patton to do. So that might be a hell of a thing for Shallan coming up. Could also be bad because Shallan's be in with the Ghost Bloods and she can tell them all about the king, so that's not great. But I think personally, I think for Elhokar personally, I think this will be ultimately a good thing. He will be getting training, he'll be getting instruction, and then he can take the lessons from that. He can apply them to his kingship, and he can start to get his shit together and be a good king. I'm pulling for you, Elhokar.
So this is really interesting. What, assuming that if he's the same kind of, he's a light weaver like Shallan, he's got the same sprint, right? Like, how does he use those powers of like illusion or whatever in his kingship? And related question, like, what kind of, if Shallan's had to speak these truths, these things that she didn't want to admit to herself that had happened, what kind of truths would Elhokar have?
Well, I mean, he's pretty good at spitting truths as far as I'm not my dad, I'm not as good as my dad, stuff like that. So maybe that's part of the reason the cryptics are drawn to him. One thing you can say for Elhokar is he's never, I don't think he's ever been dishonest. He's foolish and he says the wrong thing, but he says it all honestly. So yeah, maybe
there was that time he tried to make it look like somebody was trying to kill him.
Good point. I had momentarily forgotten that. Yeah, so I don't know what kind of truths he needs to speak, but maybe it's more a case of who he needs to speak them to. He needs to stand up for himself to Dalinar in a way that Dalinar will listen. I don't know how he would use the powers per se. That's just something I have to ride out because I'm still wrapping my head around these powers as a whole anyway.
Fair, yeah.
But yeah, that's where I think we're at.
Oh, some interesting thoughts. Yeah. I kind of like some of these ideas about where we're going. Okay.
Yeah, I just feel like, especially towards the end of this book, we really have seen stuff. It's humanized Elhokar, and I want to see him get a win.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Dude needs a win because he has nothing
except for the kingship of the whole country,
which he doesn't really want because he's not good at it.
And he doesn't. I mean, Dalinar's kind of telling him what to do a lot, so maybe that doesn't even count. But
yeah,
okay, fair. I want to do. Let's hit a couple emails, y'all, and then we're going to discuss what we are going to do next.
Before that, I'm going to give my rating and final thoughts on.
Oh, right.
Book.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I went back because I was like, man, I like this book. What did I rate Way of Kings? And I rated Way of Kings very high because I didn't leave myself a lot of room to go up, which is unfortunate for me. So I rated Way of Kings an 8, and I did like Words of Radiance more. But it suffers, I think, from the same issues for me. Pacing. I think my primary issue with pacing in Way of Kings was flashbacks and how long things take to happen. And to be completely honest, while I understand the importance of the flashbacks and I do enjoy getting background story, it did still take me out of the story quite a bit in this one. So as even though I enjoyed this one quite a bit, I enjoyed Way of Kings quite a bit as well. I was prepared to give it a higher rating than Way of Kings, but based on my similar issues with it, I think I'm going to give it the same rating. So I'm going to also give Words of Radiance an 8 out of 10. That leaves me a little wiggle room for the next books if they're better to rate them even higher. But yeah, it didn't stand out to me as way better than Way of Kings. And since it suffered, in my opinion, from the same issues, I'm going with 8 out of 10 for old Words of Radiance.
Okay. I've never had the same issue with the flashbacks, but I can understand where you're coming from. I will say I think Oathbringer's flashbacks are probably my favorite of the 5 that have been out. But I don't know that that's saying much. Because like I said, I haven't disliked the ones that we've had so far. All right. Let's do a couple emails, and then we're going to talk about next steps. The first one is from Cliffhanger. Is the name. It's titled How Smart Was Taravangian and a Noise. Hello, Data, Joe, Jamie, and Dak. And I got Cliff here spells it Datuh for Data, Jough for Joe. Jamie is right, except it's short 1E. And then Dak is Daque. So they want to make sure to equally misspell all of them.
Yeah, I was about to say Joe, like pizza dough. That's
like dough.
Really weird.
J,
yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen that one.
Second time emailing, but I've been listening since your first Reddit post advertising the pod. You recently covered the bit where Adrotagia gives some statistics regarding Taravangian's intelligence. And I thought it would be interesting to calculate just how smart they're saying Taravangian was. The answer I got was at least 27,000 times his average intelligence. I don't really think that has much meaning beyond the idea that Taravangian was unfathomably smart that day, which sort of goes towards Joe's question about how something like the diagram could be possible, even if Taravangian was really smart. We aren't even supposed to be able to understand how something like that would be possible because he was just that much smarter.
Yeah. If he's 20,000 times smarter than his average intelligence, and let's say he's an averagely intelligent man, what's an average IQ? You can just calculate it that way.
Let's see. Average U.S. IQ. Not going to count the Australians. It falls between 85 and 145 is what this says.
So let's say conservatively he's a 95. So he's on the lower end of an average intelligence.
Yeah.
What's 20,000 times 95?
That is 1,900,000.
So he has a 1,900,000 IQ point level. That's pretty smart. That'd be like I could see somebody having an IQ that high as being so hyper intelligent that they could foresee all possibilities of all things given the right amount of data. The question is, where did he get the data?
And he, it's in your data. I could not in good conscience state that number without a source for my work, so I've included an appendix with my work, but you can ignore that if you want. And there is math included down here, and I am not going to read through all of that math. I got my degree in psychology, and the only math I needed was statistics. So, also, I'm continuing the email. Also, I'm used to hearing baby or dog noises in the background of the episodes. Pause to say, have we had a lot of dog noises? I mean, Joe has his dog there sometimes. I don't feel like the dog's that noisy.
He can bark pretty darn loud.
Okay. But whatever made the noise at 55:35 on episode 223 took me by surprise. So after reading that, obviously I had to go back and listen. I believe what happens it's a little bit past 55:35, but right about there in episode 223, I believe it is someone somewhere, probably in my house, going woohoo.
Woohoo!
Yeah, something like that.
Might be my son going woohoo. We don't know.
Could be. It was very loud though. It was like a yell. I'm like, that sounds like it might have been. Anyway, that's what that noise was. Cliff, pretty sure. Finally, watch out for Moash evangelists. Some of them take the debate around Elokar versus Moash very seriously. Thank you for a great podcast. Crabs ahoy, a spook fan.
Ooh.
Oh man, wait
Yeah.
one at the end there.
Yeah. Also, Moash evangelist. I feel like that's an oxymoron.
A Moash evangelist.
Yeah, because I feel like you could not. I mean, I guess it's not an oxymoron, but I feel like evangelizing could be. I guess it could be a negative or positive connotation. I don't know. It just doesn't sound right to me.
Movangelists.
And then let's do one more of these emails. Okay, we'll do this one's from Adam. Lopin, Wayne, and Kaladin Moash comparisons. So Adam says, "Hi, Sanderlanche crew. I was, I think, one of the first to write in to y'all with complaints about Wayne. So I feel I'm obliged to weigh in with my thoughts on Lopin. Personally, I don't really like Lopin for different reasons than Wayne. In Lopin's case, it's more that he gets on my nerves and just doesn't shut up. A lot of the times I'll laugh at his first Lopinism, but then he'll just keep on going, and I just want him to be done so we can move on with the scene. Wayne, however, does know when to stop talking, and as a result, I do enjoy a lot more of his banter. My problem with Wayne is he's not really a good person, and despite getting better, he never really addresses his inherent selfishness and self-centered attitude. Even his sacrifice in Lost Metal doesn't really address this, in my opinion. That isn't to say that Lopin has no flaws, but his lack of major flaws makes him almost worse from a reader perspective, since it just makes for a character that I don't like reading and doesn't have any interesting character details. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
He's the Lopin. Show him some damn respect.
I mean, I can kind of see it's like, oh yeah, like Lopin bangs on a bit. He might get on your nerves, but I feel like he's less as the one who like took a set against Wayne. I feel like Lopin doesn't bother me as much simply because he's not a main character. He's kind of just like he's just the dude in the entourage who pipes up every so often with some comedy. That might be changing now that he's getting powers.
Yeah.
But also Lopin's always there when you need him, right? Like he's always got the
he's helping
cousin. Out. Yeah. Like he's never actively doing something that makes their lives harder, unlike Wayne. Right?
That is true. Like Lopin has never stolen something from Kaladin and said, well, if you didn't want me to steal it, you shouldn't have left the door locked for me to pick it open.
Yeah. Like Lopin at least is always there for you. with a smile and some chowder.
Some chowder. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, Lopin is always helpful. Even when it's not necessarily help that you feel like you needed, he's there trying to help out.
Right.
That's a good point.
And he calls people Gancho. Who doesn't like that?
Gancho.
Yeah, I sort of touches on what Dak said, because he's a character that he's there, and it doesn't really bother me. But if he's going to take a more prominent role, maybe it would start to get really irritating. But I'm pretty sure so when I've been listening to the audiobooks, Wayne and the Lopin sound like the same voice as well. Like very, very similar. Yeah,
it's the same narrator, so that kind of makes sense.
It's the same narrator, but the same. They have very similar delivery, I think, of the lines, and it's quite funny that comparison is now being brought up.
That's interesting. I always think whenever you talk about, like, you've listened to some of the chapters, I'm like, man, I want to go and listen to that just to hear it. And then I've tried a couple times, and it's just my thing with audiobooks. I can't do it. I get distracted. But you always leave me being like, man, I should go listen.
I think sometimes it's good to listen to it, because then you can hear pronunciations and all that sort of stuff, which I definitely like, rather than trying to figure it out myself and then find out I'm completely wrong. Where I've liked it in the last few weeks is reading the epigraphs, and how, like, you really get a sense for the rambling. I think in one of the ones we just read, which was it was all the words were just mashed together. There was no spaces. You can't see that on the page. So I think there is still something about reading the actual text that you do miss in the audiobook. But then in the audiobook, you get like, this is just rambling. This is just words. And I kind of gives a bit of extra context. But yeah, I definitely flip between the two. I don't know that I could do the whole book. I mean, you then, of course, miss the illustrations and things like that are really interesting that come up in the book. Sometimes you find the printed version is different to the text version, which is something you'll hear about if you listen to the live read that we did last week. I was reading a different book to Dak, so that was fun. Yeah, I think it's definitely good, but I do still like reading the textbook. The voices are sometimes pretty fun.
That's cool. It's interesting what a different experience it can be. And speaking of pronunciations, actually, the next part of this email is about Moash and Kaladin, and I heard recently someone say that some people pronounce it as Mosh, and I'm like, I can't see it. It doesn't work in my brain.
Yeah, that doesn't, for some reason, that pronunciation makes me think of Moash as a surfer, and I'm like, I can't get behind that.
Gnarly
the audiobook says Moash.
Yeah. He's like, I felt so bad. I was riding some sick 20-footers when my parents got killed. It's the worst.
Okay, so the latter half of the email. And now for something completely different. Let's talk about the parallels between Kaladin and Moash. Dak groans in the background, the email says.
Yep.
In many ways, they are very similar. Both hate Light Eyes. Both lost family to Light Eyes games. Both want revenge on the Light Eyes who wronged them. The difference, of course, comes in how the two ultimately go about getting their revenge. While Moash tries to directly kill the person who got his grandparents killed, Kaladin allows Dalinar to handle the Amaram situation. I think the intended lesson here is that one should set aside petty revenge to be the better man, and that revenge only makes you into what you are trying to destroy, which, to be clear, I like as a message. The idea is that this doesn't take into account the class dynamic in a way that is, to me, very problematic. Kaladin and Moash are systematically oppressed, and yet, when it comes to getting justice to their oppressors, the narrative says they should just sit back and let the other elites, i.e. Dalinar, handle it. What I and other emailers have been trying to point out is that by saying Kaladin is good for not personally getting revenge and Moash is bad for attempting to kill Elhokar, we're leaning dangerously towards saying that oppressed groups who try to take violent action to address injustices are bad, and that is a message I cannot get behind.
No. Stop. Elhokar is not the target. Rashon is the target. Elhokar is getting blamed by Moash because he's there and in close proximity.
Interesting point. I feel like Moash told Kaladin he wanted to kill somebody when they were still bridgemen and Kaladin was training them to fight. I feel like he was after Moash or after Elhokar before we even knew that accessing Elhokar was a possibility.
Yeah, fair, but
yeah, but I think think Dak's point is that like you can't blame a class for the actions of one man. And you can't say that it's a class battle, right? Let's say that they're living in a suppressive system, right? The actions of that. So let's take a parallel comparison, right? Dalinar and Sidaeus, two men of the same class, almost exactly the same class, two men who go about using their power and authority in entirely different ways for entirely different purposes. One, you would say, is honorable. The other one is not. Okay? Has nothing to do with the fact that they're in the same class. Has nothing to do with the fact that technically you could say that Dalinar is oppressing Dark Eyes because which really, I mean, I think he shows in this book, he does see men as more equal than that. He's living within the limits of his own society and he doesn't always agree with it, right? But to say that that Moash is fighting for class oppression is inaccurate. Moash is fighting for revenge, for his own personal revenge, and he's using the class oppression angle as leverage, as a kind of like excuse for what he's doing, right? Because if a Dark Eyes guy had done to him what Elhokar or Rashon supposedly did to him, he'd still be in the same position. He'd still be like, screw that guy, I'm gonna kill him. Right?
Yeah, I guess that is the question.
Doesn't matter.
Would he try to pursue like the legal system to get justice for what happened, or would he be out here trying to get revenge, even if it was a guy at the same level as him?
Right.
Because
I think
that's the difference, right?
Right. And now he's not at the same level as Elhokar, right? Because Elhokar is the king, but he's a Light Eyes. You could argue he's at a higher level than Rashon. Right?
I'm sure that he is a higher level than Rashon at that point. Yeah.
Right. So like it's not the same thing. It's not a class against class battle.
Because he might have been able to get legal action taken against Rashon.
Yeah. At this point.
At that point, after he became a shard bearer. Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah.
So I think the class system is just an excuse for him to get what he wants. Right. And for Kaladin, I think you could argue he was kind of in that same boat, right? Because he'd been let down by Light Eyes over and over and over and again. And this class difference had kind of kept him from getting what he wanted. You could argue throughout most of his life, the girl that he liked growing up, the respect of people in his town, his dad getting respect because of the new guy that came into town, Rashon coming into town, his brother being basically forced into the army. All of those things were done by the class system and by, Rashon being a jerk, right? So they were both wronged by the same guy in that sense. But at the same time, when faced with the fact that, like, okay, this Light Eyes guy, this Dalinar guy, he's a good dude. That's when, like, he realizes, okay, I have to remember that I'm not fighting, like, it's not me against the Light Eyes. It's me against assholes. Like, I have to figure out who's the asshole here. Am I the asshole? Okay, then I need to back off. Are they the asshole? Okay, then I need to I need to do something about it.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I don't know that I want to try to add anything to that. There's one final little bit here. Finally, Data, why did you immediately tell them about Talon's honor blade being swapped? Out of all the things that you've let them chew on for a while, why immediately shut down speculations about Dalinar having an honor blade? Personally, I would have given them the chance to speculate for another few episodes before pointing it out at the end of the book. So I considered that. That's one of the things that we as an audience got to chew on for a while at the end of this book. And it's only when people start spotting, wait a second, why are these descriptions different? And then asking Brandon about it, Brandon's like, yeah, why are they different? That it came out that, like, oh, wait, Talon's honor, that's the blade that Dalinar gets is not Talon's honor blade. There's a hint at it even here at the end when the sword screams when he bonds the Stormfather, right? Which we know from seeing Kaladin have the Windrunner honor blade, which is Yezrian's blade, who was the Windrunner. We know that honor blades don't do that. So there was a hint right here that the blade Dalinar has is not an honor blade. But honestly, I just did it because in my mind, it's just confusing. It's one of those things where it's like, he should have, he had Talon's blade. It should be an honor blade, right? Is that a mistake that it's not an honor blade? It's a very small little bit that gives you the hint, the clue that these two things are not the same. and it's easy to miss. I missed it the first time I read through it, and I feel like it wouldn't be good for theorizing so much as it would just create confusion. Which like when you guys thought that the guys who showed up in the Clear Lake were all Ghost Bloods, and it's like how does what the Ghost Bloods doing relate to what they were doing? How does what Kelsier as the Ghost Blood leader want relate to what they're doing? That to me is a font of possible theorizing. Even if it's all going to be wrong theorizing, it could still be fun. This to me was just confusing and wouldn't necessarily lead to any fun theories. So that's why I addressed it so quickly. So people can agree or disagree with that, but that was my thinking. All right, no new patrons this week. Let's talk about what we're going to do next. So if we continue going through Stormlight, the next thing on our Stormlight archive journey is actually the short story Edge Dancer, which is in Arcanum Unbounded. So that's where you guys will be reading. And then after that, we would move on to Oathbringer. Edge Dancer set between these two books. However,
would that be a one episode?
That
story?
is a 3 episodes that I have outlined for that.
Okay.
So it may actually be more of a novella than a short story. But anyway, that is what we will move on to if you guys want to stick with Stormlight. However, I told you guys, Stormlight can be intense. It can be a lot. These books are so long. This is another point where I'm going to offer you guys the chance. If you're a little Stormlighted out at the moment, we can take a break, do another shorter book for a while, and then come back to that after we've kind of regenerated a little bit. So I'm going to let you guys vote. Since there's 3 of you, this should make an easy majority. Do we want to continue with Stormlight immediately, or do we want to take a break? So let's go. Let's just do the same order we've been doing. Jamie, what do you think?
I'm happy to keep going.
Okay. Makes sense. Joe?
Yeah, I'm happy to keep going as well.
All right. Dak, you can still vote. I don't know that it matters at this point.
Oh, I'm happy to still keep going. Can I ask what we would have been reading if we hadn't continued Stormlight?
Yeah, that's a good question.
My idea was that we would do Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Ooh.
Because
How many episodes would that take?
That is a 9-episode book, I believe is what I in fact, I believe
it's not particularly long.
I believe
yeah, it's not too bad.
Every one of the secret projects comes out to 9 episodes somehow.
Okay.
When I put them out. But we're going to continue with Stormlight, so we will move into Edge Dancer, which go back to your arc.
Wait. Hold on. How do you guys feel about that? You good? Or would you prefer to read Tress?
I will read what I'm told. Honestly.
I love that attitude, Jamie. Thank you.
I'm happy to keep going. I'm really enjoying the story, and I do find that my brain will probably lose a lot if we jump to a different story, and that's more a reflection of me than you guys. But I will be guided by data.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, I think I do want to read some of these fancy hardbacks that we got. I've been sitting on the shelf for ages, and I want to crack them open. But I think it's sort of like, when we finished Bands of Morning and then went into Lost Metal, it's kind of like, well, we want to just continue the story of the characters we're reading rather than cutting back to them later when we've had other things filtering through our heads. So, yeah, much as I do want to finish Tress, and even that does sound like, 9 episodes, that's actually not too long at all. No, let's keep going.
Okay, we'll revisit that again at the end of Oathbringer then, and maybe by that time you guys will be a little more exhausted of it after the better part of 2 to 3 years that we spent reading Stormlight, but we'll see. All right, in that case, you're going to go
How many weeks is Oathbringer? Sorry to interrupt again. How many weeks is Oathbringer?
Oathbringer is 39 weeks.
Holy smokies. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, maybe I can rearrange the chapters a little bit and shorten it. I do that sometimes, but I don't. There will be one of the unspoken basically rules that I've had when distributing our chapters every week is that I never have us read only one chapter. I always we've always read at least 2 chapters at a time, but I also have a limit. We never read more than this number of Kindle locations, which is how I measure it. There is one episode of Oathbringer that not only is it one chapter, that one chapter is not only longer than my limit, but it's longer than Shadows for Silence or Sixth of the Dusk.
Jesus.
So that episode will be 1 chapter. It'll be the first time we've ever done that, but that does happen in Oathbringer.
Is that in the Sanderlanche at the end? Or
it is practically the Sanderlanche. Is that 1 chapter?
Fucking hell. Okay.
Okay. So you're going to pull out Arcanum Unbounded. We're going to read first the Roshar System essay that's in there, and then we're going to read chapters 1 through 7 of Edge Dancer. And so let me put that into our chat real quick. So there we go. We have decided that is what we're doing next. So I guess it's time to wrap it up. If anyone would like to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky and Patreon, where I'm still reading Wind and Truth, but also, as I mentioned, we have our special live read will go up on Patreon, and it'll be there first. Probably I'm still not sure if 20 minutes may be long enough to be its own episode. Maybe I'll just release that the week after this as a special standalone episode and let us kind of get more ahead of the game on our reads, but we'll see. But that's check out our Patreon if you're interested in that stuff. Remember, like I said, we're doing the Roshar System essay and the first 7 chapters of Edge Dancer from Arcanum Unbounded for next time. So 7 to 8 chapters that we're reading. So if you're following along, read those. Music by Miracle of Sound. And Wasing to the Time of Next. Colo, P.S. Fisher. Crabs ahoy. Chips ahoy.
You forgot your name. Don't let your spirit fade away. Amnesia. You've been through such pain, but you're growing stronger every day. Amnesia.